My son told me I was too ugly to attend his wedding. My daughter-in-law nodded in agreement, saying my presence would ruin their perfect day. What they didn't realize was that while they saw a dying old woman, I was quietly sitting on a fortune worth millions. The day they decided to erase me from their lives, I made sure they'd remember me forever. But let me start from the beginning, because this story gets so much better. I chose my outfit carefully that morning. My dusty rose cardigan with the mother-of-pearl buttons that Danny used to fidget with during church sermons when he was small. I even wore the delicate gold bracelet he'd saved up for with his paper route money at 14. Standing in front of my bedroom mirror, I tried to see myself through his eyes. The chemotherapy had taken my hair, leaving me thin and pale under my silk headscarf, but I was still his mother. I thought that still counted for some. Danny arrived without calling first, typical to him these days. All designer cologne and expensive confidence. He didn't notice the fresh flowers I'd arranged or the homemade lemon bars cooling on the counter, his childhood favorite. He perched on the edge of my love seat like he was late for something more important. I was pouring tea when he dropped the bomb. "Mom, we think it's best if you skip the ceremony." He said it so casually, like he was suggesting I skip the grocery store. My hand froze on the tappet handle. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" I asked, though my heart was already sinking. He adjusted his silk tie, probably cost more than my monthly medication. "Look, it's going to be very upscale, very polished. Stephanie and I want everything to be flawless for the photographers." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "You don't want your mother in your wedding pictures?" He shifted uncomfortably. "It's not personal, Mom. It's just the headscarf, the weight loss, the way you've been coughing lately. Some of the guests might find it uncomfortable." Uncomfortable? That word hit me like a physical blow, so I'd become an embarrassment, something to hide away. "Danny," I whispered, "I raised you alone. I worked 3 jobs so you could have everything you wanted. Surely I can sit quietly in the back." That's when she walked in. Stephanie. Tall, cold, beautiful in that magazine perfect way. She surveyed my living room like she was inspecting a crime scene. "Oh, this is where you grew up," she said, not bothering to hide her distaste. "Stephanie, this is my mother," Danny said weakly. She barely glanced at me. "Right. We've discussed this, haven't we, babe?" Her voice was ice-cold politeness. "The venue has very specific aesthetic requirements. We've already finalized everything. Seating charge, color schemes, photography angles. I'm sure you understand." I looked at Danny, waiting for him to stand up for me, to defend the woman who'd sacrificed everything for him, but he just stared at his shoes like a coward. "She's sick," Stephanie continued, talking about me like I wasn't even there. "The whole fragile cancer patient look, it's going to make people uncomfortable. We want joy and celebration, not this." She gestured at me dismissively. Danny finally spoke up. "We can live stream it for you, Mom. You'll see everything from your couch. It'll be like being there." "I don't want to watch my son's wedding on a screen," I said quietly. "I want to be in the room where I belong." Stephanie's smile turned predatory. "Actually, we've been discussing your future care needs after the honeymoon. We should explore some excellent facilities. Clean, professional, specialized care for people in your condition." The words hit me like ice water. "You mean a nursing home?" I said flatly. "Don't be dramatic," Danny snapped. "We're trying to be practical here. You can't keep guilting me into taking care of you forever." Then he delivered the final blow. "This is exactly why Dad left you." The room went silent. 23 years of love, sacrifice, and devotion, and he threw it in my face like a weapon he'd been saving for the perfect moment. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just sat down slowly, my hands trembling in my lap. The tea grew cold, the lemon bar sat untouched. Stephanie headed for the door. "We'll send pictures," she called over her shoulder. "Let us know how the treatments go." Danny kissed the top of my headscarf. It felt like a funeral gesture. "Love you, Mom. You know that, right?" After they left, I stood at my window and watched their luxury car disappear down my street, and then I whispered to my empty house, "Thank you for showing me who you really are." Everything became crystal clear in that moment. I reached up and adjusted my headscarf, not to hide my shame anymore, but to hold myself together, because I had work to do, and my ungrateful son was about to learn what happens when you throw away the one person who loved you unconditionally.
I didn't spend that night crying or cursing God for my circumstances. Instead, I sat in my favorite armchair, wrapped in the old quilt I'd made when Danny was in elementary school, and I planned. The house felt different somehow, not empty, but expectant, like it was waiting for something momentous to happen. My breathing was labored from the chemo, but my mind was crystal clear. I thought about all those years of working multiple jobs, saving every penny, building something for his future. I remembered the day he'd come home from school, excited about a field trip he couldn't afford. I'd worked overtime for 2 weeks to pay for it, eating nothing but pasta and canned soup. All the time he'd wanted guitar lessons. I'd taken on weekend cleaning jobs at the church to make it happen. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every dollar saved, all for the boy who just told me I was too ugly for his wedding. Well, he was about to discover just how ugly things could get. I slowly made my way to my bedroom, every joint aching from the treatments. My small house felt enormous now, echoing with memories of better times. In my closet, hidden behind winter coats I rarely wore, was an old safe I'd bought years ago. Inside were documents most people never knew existed. Property deeds, investment statements, business partnership papers, and bank records that would make Danny's jaw drop. You see, while he thought I was just a struggling single mother, I'd been building an empire. The first property came when Danny was 12. Miss Anderson next door passed away, and her children wanted to sell quickly. I just received a small inheritance from my grandmother and used every penny as a down payment. I fixed it up myself on weekends, rented it out, and suddenly had extra income every month. That led to a second property, then a third, then a partnership in the successful catering business my friend Maria was starting. Nobody knew about it. I lived modestly by choice, clipping coupons, shopping sales, driving my old car until it practically fell apart. But I was rich, quietly, secretly rich. The plan had always been to surprise Danny after I was gone. I'd imagine him at my funeral, sad but grateful, and then my lawyer would hand him an envelope. Inside would be everything. Enough money to secure his future, buy a house, start a family. I saved this for you, the letter would say. I always believed in your dreams. That letter would never be written now. I pulled out my current will, the one that left everything to my only child, my beloved son Danny. Danny's name was written in elegant script as the sole beneficiary. I stared at it for a long moment, then reached for the scissors in my nightstand drawer. The same scissors I'd used to cut his hair when he was little, to trim coupons, to save money for his school clothes, to wrap his Christmas presents, year after year. I cut that will into tiny pieces and felt lighter with each snip. The next morning I called Patricia Williams, my oldest friend and my attorney. We'd known each other since nursing school, back when we were young women who thought we could change the world with compassion and hard work. Patricia answered on the first ring. "Ellie, honey, you okay?" "No," I said honestly, "but I will be. Can you come over today? I need to completely rewrite my will." There was a pause. "This about Danny and the wedding?" she asked gently. "You've heard?" I wasn't surprised. News traveled fast in our small community. I heard Stephanie was at the country club bragging about how she'd handled the difficult mother-in-law situation. Said she'd convinced Danny to uninvite you. My blood turned ice. She'd been bragging about it? "Patricia," I said, my voice steady as steel, "bring the paperwork. I know exactly who deserves my life's work, and it's not my son." Patricia arrived that afternoon with her briefcase and a concerned expression. She'd been my friend long enough to know when I was serious about something. "You sure about this, Ellie?" she asked as we sat at my kitchen table. "Positive," I replied, sliding a legal pad across to her. "Everything goes to Haven House, the women's shelter downtown. They take care of elderly women whose families have abandoned them, women just like me." Patricia began writing. We spent hours going through everything, the properties, the investments, catering business,
investments, the business interests, even the cash I kept in my bedroom closet for emergencies. By the time we finished, Patricia looked stunned. "Ellie, this is over $2 million. You built all this while raising Danny alone." "Every penny," I said proudly. "And now every penny goes to women who deserve better than what their families gave them." I also dictated a letter not to Danny, but to the shelter director, explaining my gift. "These women remind me of myself," I wrote. "They gave everything to their families and were discarded when they became inconvenient. They deserve dignity, comfort, and care in their final years. Please use this money to give them what their own children wouldn't." I signed it with a steady hand, feeling more purposeful than I had in months. Then I wrote a second letter, this one for Danny. It would be brief and devastating. "Danny," it began, "I raised you with love, sacrifice, and endless hope for your future. I worked multiple jobs, lived without luxuries, and saved every possible dollar to secure your inheritance. I was proud to be your mother. But then you looked me in the eye and told me I was too embarrassing for your wedding day. So now you get nothing, not a single dollar of the fortune you never knew existed. I hope your perfect wedding was worth losing your mother. You'll never get the chance to make this right. Goodbye forever." Patricia witnessed my signature on every document. "What do you want me to do with Danny's letter?" she asked softly. "Hold on to it," I said. "Let him have his precious wedding first. Let him smile for all those photographs. Let him think he's won. Then, right when he's feeling most triumphant, you hand him that envelope in front of everyone. I want witnesses to his shame." Patricia nodded grimly. "Consider it done." We sealed everything in a manila envelope with Danny's name written across the front. The invitation came 3 days later, not from Danny, but from his cousin Marcus, who'd always been kind to me. "And Ellie," the handwritten note said, "I don't know what's going on between you and Danny, but you belong at this wedding. The ceremony's at Riverside Gardens. Please come. Some of us still remember who raised that boy." I held the invitation for a long time, then placed it on my refrigerator. I would attend, not for Danny, but for myself. On the morning of the wedding, I took extra care getting ready. I wore my most elegant dress, navy blue with tiny pearls at the collar, the one I'd saved for special occasions. My headscarf was silk, deep burgundy with gold threading. I pinned on my mother's cameo brooch and applied lipstick with a steady hand. Looking in the mirror, I saw a woman of dignity and purpose. I looked like someone who belonged anywhere she chose to be. Patricia picked me up in her car, the manila envelope secure in her purse. "You ready for this?" she asked as we drove to the venue. "I've been ready my whole life," I replied, watching the elegant gardens come into view. The wedding was beautiful. White roses everywhere, string lights twinkling in the trees, guests in designer clothes sipping champagne. I took a seat in the back, just as I would have anyway, and waited for the show to begin. Danny looked handsome in his tuxedo, confident as he waited at the altar. Stephanie was breathtaking in her designer gown, a vision of perfection walking down the aisle. The ceremony was flawless, exactly the aesthetic they'd wanted. They exchanged vows about love, commitment, and building a future together. Stephanie cried delicate tears that didn't smudge her makeup. Danny beamed with pride. The photographer captured every perfect moment. None of them noticed the quiet woman in the back row, watching it all with knowing eyes. After they kissed and turned to face their guests as husband and wife, the crowd erupted in applause. They walked back down the aisle, radiant with joy, stopping to hug family and friends. Danny's eyes swept the crowd, probably making sure I hadn't shown up to ruin his perfect day. Our eyes met for just a moment. I saw the flash of surprise, then panic. But it was too late for him to do anything about it. The damage was already done. As guests moved toward the reception area, Patricia stood up and walked directly to the happy couple. They were posing for photos near a fountain, surrounded by wedding party members and family members. "Congratulations," Patricia said warmly, approaching with the envelope. "This is from Dan's mother." She handed it to him with a smile, then walked away before either could respond. I watched from my seat as Danny tore open the envelope with trembling fingers. His face went white as he read the new will. His hands shook as he flipped through page after page of legal documents, seeing his name nowhere except in the final letter. Stephanie snatched the papers from him, her eyes growing wider with each line. "What is this?" she hissed. "What does this mean?" Danny couldn't speak. He just stared at the letter, reading those final words over and over. "You'll never get the chance to make this right. Goodbye forever." The photographer kept snapping pictures, not realizing he was capturing the exact moment Danny's world collapsed. Guests began to notice something was wrong. Whispers started spreading through the crowd. Stephanie's face went from confusion to rage as she processed what she was reading. "She was rich," she screamed. "Your mother was secret millionaire, and you let her disinherit you because you were embarrassed by her headscarf?" "I didn't know," Danny whispered, his voice breaking. "She never told me." "You never asked." Stephanie threw her bouquet on the ground. "You threw away millions because you were ashamed of the woman who earned every penny of it." The entire wedding party had stopped what they were doing. Phones came out, people started recording. Danny looked around desperately, probably searching for me, but I was already gone. I had slipped away during the commotion, leaving only an empty chair and the memory of what he'd lost. Patricia found me in the parking lot, sitting in her car with my hands folded in my lap. "How you feel?" she asked gently. "Free," I said, and meant it. We drove home in comfortable silence, while behind us, Dan's perfect wedding turned into a nightmare of his own making. Stephanie's friends were probably already texting everyone they knew. The story would be all over social media within hours. The local news picked up the story by evening. "Dying mother disinherits son after wedding snub," read the headlines. But here's the twist. They never reported. I wasn't dying anymore. The experimental treatment had worked. My latest scans were clear. The cancer was gone. I was going to live. But I let Danny believe I'd passed away, just as I'd planned. Let him live with that guilt forever. Let him wonder if I died thinking he hated me. I moved away quietly 2 weeks later, a small coastal town where nobody knew my story, where I could start fresh with a new name and a peaceful life. I rent a cottage with a garden where I grow tomatoes and read books in the sunshine. I volunteer at the local animal shelter. I've made friends with other women my age who appreciate kindness over appearances. I'm happier than I've been in years. Meanwhile, Danny's marriage lasted exactly 4 months. Stephanie left him the moment she realized he was truly broke, taking half of what little he had left. He tried to contest the will, but Patricia had made it bulletproof. He sent letters to Haven House, begging them to give him something, but they followed my instructions to ignore all communication from him. He lost everything because he threw away the one person who loved him unconditionally. Sometimes I wonder if he thinks about that last conversation we had when he said I was too ugly for his wedding. I wonder if he realizes that his cruelty cost him everything he ever wanted. But mostly, I don't think about him at all. I think about the women at Haven House, living in comfort and dignity, thanks to my life's work. I think about the good I was able to do after learning who my son really was. I think about second chances and new beginnings. The truth is, Danny did me a favor that day. He showed me that I'd been wasting my love on someone who didn't deserve it. He freed me from the obligation to care about someone who saw me as a burden. He gave me permission to live for myself for the first time in decades. And now I wake up every morning grateful for the peace I found on the other side of his betrayal. So to anyone listening who has ever felt invisible, unwanted, or thrown away by the people you loved most,
remember this: your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. Sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is showing you exactly who they are, so you can stop wasting your precious time on people who don't deserve it. Take back your power, rewrite your story, and live the life you deserve. The last I heard, Danny was working at a call center, living in a studio apartment.
From China cups I'd bought myself, finally understanding what it means to be truly wealthy, not in money, but in peace. And that's worth more than any inheritance I could have ever left behind.